your story becomes someone else's story or experience because of the similarities and because of the commonalities that make your story and your overcoming so personal and yet so collective in nature, because it inspires someone else to take the steps and to transcend their issues and their life.
If we look at whether you are coming from a village or a metropolis, somebody have had the idea of being the first person to be located in that place, that they become a village because other people came to live with them. So they have been living there for a lot of time. So that you are not actually walking in the bush, you are walking in the road. So by referring to this experience, this story, we are looking at what have been before us that actually shape where we are today. But what if we could use this also to connect among ourselves?
The thing about story, the limitations on story is the interpretation when it gets into your spirit, and the possibilities of storytelling to connect is the power that it has to harness hope and resilience and to allow persons to take back their power. That is how it connects, regardless of their diaspora, regardless of experience.
Hello and thank you for checking out this video. I'm Obehi Ewanfo, the host of the African Diaspora Storytelling Series. Every 2 weeks we meet up on LinkedIn to talk about different ways we can leverage the power of storytelling as people of African descent. Now this is it. We are uniting the millions of Africans in the diaspora through the power of our story. It does sound like what you are interested in. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends who might need it. Now, back to today's conversation. We are talking about the Diaspora Storytelling as usual, which is a storytelling series. We are looking at how story or how our experiences can help us to connect across border. And I think this is something that should be important for us in that in the diaspora, coming from different background, we shouldn't look at our whatever we are finding ourselves to be a limitation. This can be whether you are talking about language or talking about the national border in this sense. Maybe like, for example, you are living in Jamaica and I'm living in Italy. That should not be a limitation for us at all. I remember, for example, there were some scholars who at the time were saying, why are we not lay emphasis on the Afro? And because the Afro, in this sense, now they were saying it means that all of us are coming from the same source. Maybe that is what we should be lay emphasis on, instead of maybe saying, okay, I belong to this creed, I belong to, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a UK, I'm Afro UK or Afro Jama or Afro Brazilian or whatever. Why don't we put Afro as the number one priority, so that every person that is listening to us can see that we actually are united by a common force? And I think I share that line too. And of course, that also is in line with what we are discussing today, which is how to connect among ourselves, irrespective of where we might find ourselves, irrespective of the language that we might speak, irrespective of the religion that we might profess. So yeah, I think I really am looking forward to this conversation today. But first, I want to ask you, Dr. Marcia, what is your take on the conversation, which is using storytelling to connect across border? Yeah.
I find and I believe and I consistently say your story is your own thing. Your experience is yours. It's not given to anybody else. It's given to you by a divine ordinance for your own purpose and to build you and to serve others. So your mission in life is really attached to your story. And your story has different chapters. And as you progress through these chapters, you are able to connect and transcend cultural, linguistic, and geographical differences in many ways. And that is how it connects persons across borders, because your story becomes someone else's story or experience because of the similarities and because of the commonalities that make your story and your overcoming so personal and yet so collective in nature, because it inspires someone else to take the steps and to transcend their issues and their lives, and know that they are not the only one, and that someone across the world is experiencing something similar and has overcome something similar and is teaching and helping and supporting me and empowering and enabling me to do the same. So that's one of the ways in which I feel that storytelling connects persons across borders, because of their universal themes and their emotional impact and resonance, and how the exchange of life issues, and how it plans out and pins out when it is carried, when it is received, when it is delivered, and when it is interpreted, and when it makes that connection that transforms.
I like that part, particularly the ending part of it, where you're talking of the transformation now. Okay, we understand that you are an expert in that area, using story and also your leadership as a way of transforming people, which is something that is also fundamentally important for us here in the diaspora. That we need people who are able to guide also others on what to do. And sometimes we also use storytelling, particularly in this area, in that we need to look at others that have been before us. How have they, what they do or what they have done, impact us in a way, or how have they shaped us? That is also in line with the project that we have in A-Classes Media, which is Life and Legacy, in the sense that we are taking the time to learn from different experts that have been here before us, who have shaped the reality that we find ourselves today, based on what they have done, based on the legacy that they have left behind. And by talking about then using storytelling to be able to experiment in this area, we are actually lay emphasis on the past, because our life is intrinsically linked to what have happened before in the past. We are not just in the present. Our life is linked to what have happened before, because without what have happened before, we cannot be where we are today. So I think storytelling help us to be able to do this in the sense of being able to have a bearing, because we learn from those who have been before us, and we use their experiences to shape where we are going in the future. And when we talk about transformation in this sense now, it can even become an instrument that we put in the hands of our educational institution to use as a way of refining our destination, because we know where we are coming from. We know where we are today. Therefore, we're able to project where we are going to go tomorrow. But what if we don't know where we are coming from, in the sense of maybe when we are not leveraging story, where we don't know our history, where we don't know what have happened before, it will become very difficult for us to know where we are going, because in my place it is said that Oranovale Jonavade Oile Josha, okay, that is our Nisan language, is the southern Nigeria. It basically means that if you don't know where you are coming from, you also do not know where you are going. And that might seem very simplistic, but it is true. It is true in almost all the time. Because whether you are looking at maybe transformation in coaching, or maybe you are giving somebody a direction or where you want to go, it's important that we first of all try to understand where are we even coming from. And that is what storytelling actually helps us to do, is that we are paying attention to the experiences before us, because it is those experiences that have passed that actually shape into where we are today. And they're also shaping where we are going tomorrow. So it is not by accident that we are laying emphasis on that particular aspect of our life, which is the story of those that have been before us. And that might seem a little, for somebody who do not pay attention, might mean that, okay, are we then just doing it for the sake of those that have passed? No, we are not doing it only for the sake of those that have passed. We are doing it also for us and those that are going to be here. Because we do not usually live enough to be able to set up the foundation or the culture, the reality, the attitude that we want to call ourselves, even the food that we eat, somebody have actually tested it until the point that they say, okay, this one is food, we can eat it. But it is not us, because we don't live enough to be able to experiment to say that this is food. Somebody have experimented on this before. If we look at whether you are coming from a village or a metropolis, somebody have had the idea of being the first person to be located in that place, that they become a village because other people came to live with them. So they have been living there for a lot of time. So that you are not actually walking in the bush, you are walking in the road. So by referring to this experience, this story, we are looking at what have been before us that actually shape where we are today. But what if we could use this also to connect among ourselves? That maybe I am in Italy just now, but there is somebody who is in the UK. How does your experiences tie up with my experiences, for the fact that we are both of us African and we might have a commonality? That is where I would like to drag Dr. Matia in how do we build our commonality, for the fact that we are coming from a history or a culture that is common among us. What do you say about that, Dr. Matia?
Well, first of all, we want to share our human experience. That's the first thing I can say, because stories often uh, explore universal themes. All of us love in our lives, all of us experience fear, all of us have hope, and we struggle. And these are resonating points for people, regardless of their backgrounds. And so that's one of the places that we want to start. We want to share from an authentic place our human experiences and our emotion. We want to also, as we share, empathize with the characters that we are in our lives and the situations that are different but are our own, because of the common thread and the fabric of of self, of fostering self, of cultivating self, of being aware of resilience building, of overcoming, of pivoting, of unmasking our pain and so on. And as we this fosters a sense of connection and understanding. And so the highest form for me is to share from an honest, authentic, and respectful place our human experience. And then we want to also overcome our prejudices. And so we want to be open to expose ourselves to diverse perspectives, and that is what storytelling can do in a very comfortable place. It can challenge stereotypes, it can break down prejudices, it can encourage more inclusive attitudes, it can build bridges and over divides and not walls. And so by highlighting our commonalities and fostering dialogue, we are able to break down these barriers, and then we can use it as an educational tool. You see, I find that a lot of us, in telling our stories, we are particular that persons understand our story the way we understand it. But for a story to connect, we must understand and interpret your story the way it applies to my situation, my context, and my life. And so, if we focus on making it an educational rather than a expression, focus on the expressive side of it. This is my story. I must tell it. I am a victim, and so on, or I'm a victor, and persons must know what I've gone through and what I've overcome. Can be a challenge. But if we tend to want others to learn about certain events in our lives, certain issues, and connect to break down the barriers and to share our experience, then we are more about highlighting aspects of our story that make people critically think about their own stories, change their lives, change their outcomes, and feel that it is being done with the help and support of someone, even if it's not someone that they physically know. And so it can also eliminate some of the moral dilemmas that we face and the complex situations that would encourage persons to want to give up or feel that they're alone. And so there's another way we can also look at doing that. We can make digital connections, meaning we can preserve our stories in books. And when I say books, it can be audio books, it can be hard copies and so on. And so this gives it a global reach so that this story can be amplified, the impact can be amplified as it can reach others and allow them to share our experience, assess our experience, and critically immerse themselves in our stories. And we call it immersive reading, and interact on the platforms and change how they perceive things, and also move them along to promote conflict in themselves, such as imposter syndrome and those things that affect persons and make them feel alienated or isolated.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, and that question of isolation is a theme that is very common among us in the diaspora. Yeah, it's something that comes up quite often because the society sometimes is harsh. In that you came from a different reality now, you find yourself in a world that is completely different from you in terms of how people perceive reality, even without discrimination, without racism, which is in and of itself is a big reality that we also face here, particularly those of us in the West. Even if that was not innate, even if that were out of the game, it's still going to be challenging for you anyway, because now you need to learn a new language, you need to learn how to adapt yourself to a normal way of life. And you really need to be strong for you to be able to overcome all these challenges. You see, one of the things I really have learned doing a lot of interview, which also actually led to this storytelling series, in that looking at the people that I've interviewed, a lot of them, the first Africans in northern Italy, at a point, I was really seeing this loneliness deeply rooted in them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. In that, if you leave your country of origin and you live in another country, say maybe 3, 4 years, you become a different person. There is nothing you can do about that. Of course, I understand now that there are a lot of Nigeria, particularly here in where I live, which is Italy. I believe that it might also be true in other places, whether in UK or US, who sort of want to live among themselves. At one point, you might look at it as, why are you separating yourself from the people? Maybe you should just sort of mingle with them instead of recreating a different Nigeria where you live. Of course, this is very common, mostly with Nigeria and also the Ghanaians. Of course, looking at the reality of Italy, I don't know of other country in detail. By other country, I mean maybe African living in Germany or living in France. And some of the explanation to that, at least what I've understood, that what I've led to that in Italy is that our language is different. The way that we perceive something is different when we come here. And because of that challenges, some people just naturally recoil, either they go back to their share, because that is the first line of defense. If you don't know how to move forward, you return to where you are coming from. And it's more like what I was saying before, no? Either you must know where you are coming from. You must have the basics. You must know your origin, your source. And this is also very prevalent now. If you look at the experiment that is called Nigeria, let me just use that as an example. You see, there are many ways that you can look at the experience of Nigeria as a nation. There are some school of thought that will say, okay, we are sort of rebelling against the idea that we were not the one that actually created this country, was created by other people. And for this, it was not in our interest. Therefore, we need to return to where we are coming from. And this philosophy gives rise to heightened tension of tribalism, of sectionalism, where uh, the allegiance is not very clear. In Nigeria, for example, looking at the Nigeria particular case, in that it is not clear whether we need to hold our allegiance to the traditional ruler, the Oba, the Emir, the Igwe, or we need to hold our allegiance to the Republic of Nigeria. Because what is going to happen now is that if we hold our allegiance to the Republic of Nigeria, meaning we need to sort of remove or at least diminish the kind of respect that we hold for these offices. This is how a people actually evolve, you see. In Italy, in the 1800s, they had to basically reduce the level of the language they were speaking in the country and elevate one, which may become the Italian language. The Italian language was not spoken up to that time. So that if we look at the experiment that we have in Nigeria, if we come to accept that this is a country, then we are going to make a lot of sacrifices, for example, in that because we cannot have two drivers in one car. It's going to crash. And we're going to I not only say devalue one, but we're going to reduce the power that we hold in one so that we can elevate the other one. That is the experience, and that is where the people are coming from. And that is why maybe comparing that to the situation that we have among the African diaspora, is that if we are not able to have a strong center, then the people are likely to fall back to the component. And I think also, things fall apart. This gives a very clear example to this, in that when the center cannot hold, when the knife is split at that center, that thing that is holding us together cannot really hold very well. Now we go back to the component. And the component is, where are we coming from? Well, this can be good, this can be bad. I'm not really saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying this is how we function as a people, which is also when we come to the diaspora, that is also how we function. Because we are not able to move forward, because the situation is hard for us, we return to where we are coming from, which is our language. We mingle only with the people that look like us. We eat the food that we have been used to, because we don't know this new one yet. And sometimes we might not really have the intention of going forward to experiment on that. I'm saying all this to mean that by the time all this happen, we can sort of find ourselves lowly, because we are not able to go into the mainstream now, because the mainstream, depending on the perception that we have of it, can be like a danger, a threat to us. And therefore, we need to recoil and go back to where we are coming from. But what do we do about that? How do we overcome that? Which is the situation that we have here among the diaspora. That is a strong one. I want to repeat again, because there are effects, there are consequences of that if we don't address it. And of course, if I were to maybe bring back again the situation I was referring to, looking at the Nigerian experiment, because the people need to decide whether they want to have a strong center or a weak center. But the consequence of that is that if you have a strong center, then the component will be sort of weakened a little bit. But that is the sacrifice that you need to make. The same thing also in the diaspora. You are going to make sacrifice. If you want to sort of go out of the component or the tradition that you are coming from and mingle with other people that are not like you, you are going to lose something. But you're also going to get something in that new direction or in that new experiment that you are going to. So I don't know if I'm sort of overstating that aspect of why this is the way that we usually behave. By the way, I'll come to you on that, Dr. Marcia, with a question, but not now. Just hold on a little bit. I want to thank the people that are joining us in the conversation. I see my sister there, Tessie. Thank you for joining. We are happy to have you here. I see also Violet. I see Mercy. I see Loretta. Emeka. Anyway, I don't see the name fully, but anyway, I see that it's Chuku there. Then I see the dentist. Thank you all for joining us. We are talking about how do we connect among ourselves in the diaspora using the power of storytelling, of course. And if any of you have anything to share with us, maybe because what we are saying makes sense to you, or maybe because you don't agree with what we are saying in any way, Please just raise your hand. We add it to the conversation because we are interested in hearing what you are saying. What we are saying is not the gospel. We are not the only one that know. We are just sharing our part. What you know is also important. We're also ready to learn from you. So yeah. Now, having said that, I want to thank Ajon Benanji. I appreciate your raising your hand to say something about the conversation. Please go ahead and share with us.
Hello, Obehi. What I am about to share is 1000% the truth, but I don't know how well it would go down with all of us. Nevertheless, I'm going to mention this, and I hope I have your permission. Nothing obnoxious, nothing directed at anybody. Mr. Obehi, how come we Asians, Africans, and sometimes people from the Middle East talk about diaspora? How come no American, no Brit, no Australian ever talks about this? Weird, weird. They come to our continent to work. We go to their continent to look for opportunities. Then we are not them. We have to gel with them. They have an option. Now, these are subjects which I started on LinkedIn about 3 months back after having visited a large European country with a mission that I get the diaspora to get together and only assist people from the various countries in the normal getting along with the topography and the finance and home and so on. I want to share one or two things, sir. Unlike the Africans, they did not see much value to what my aim was, and personally, it was nothing for me, nothing at all. However, I found the Asians uh, quite united to the idea. So that set me thinking. When I came back, I put a ad and I started a group, Friends of Africa, and gosh, I got 6 likes, just 6 likes. Although I'm a Mr. Nobody, I'm not a premium member, nor am I the president of a country, but I have my voice. Not one African, sir. Out of the 6, not one African. I continued with tips for a development of that economy. I can say this with conviction because I have helped partial decision makings of some poor nations, and they still have my name on some of the things which I suggested. Nothing happened. Now, if you understand that when the isolation sets in, homesickness sets in. That is absolutely 100% true. And the last point which I would like to make is something which my head bows down with shame. A multimillionaire in that country, an African, and a Nigerian, uh, he introduced me to his son, a 21 handsome young man. And I said, "Hi, how are you? You remember Nigeria?" Well, he told me in his accent. He said, "What Nigeria? I am a proud dash of this nation where I've been born." Okay, the rest you would know. And nobody wants complications in life. Nobody wants to be unhappy in life. But then again, something needs to click. You are earning in millions in Italy. The others are in Italy not earning enough. Your parents are being given a good lifestyle, but your cousins, your grandparents, the others. So that's my honest submission. I am doing my bit. I don't need anybody's help because I very quickly gauged that when you try to touch on a controversial topic, people see this as the Bible of truth. Whatever has been written is written. but there are some unwritten lines also which we face, which maybe the Gospels did not know of that during that time. And before I end, Mr. Obehi, I liked what you said when you said that in Nigerian we say this. Um I would like to hear that because in Asia we have a statement which says, if you are not a citizen of your country, whichever, who are you? So, would you kindly repeat that and over and out, sir? Thank you very much. Lovely, wonderful topic.
Thank you so much for that, Anjo. I appreciate what you're saying. And also, I like the idea that you are probing the question of the diaspora. Why is it that we African, the Asian, Middle Eastern are very heavy on the topic of diaspora, whereas people like European or um, Americans are not as heavy as we are on it? Well, I think it's an important question. It's an important question that calls for a reflection. Um, but I think at the end of the day, um, what we are trying to do is actually to connect among ourselves and to use our experiences, what have happened to us, as a way to build something that can work for us. We are looking at our experiences. But quite frankly, I don't know if it is true that the European or the Euro-Western do not do the diaspora. Maybe they just use different terms. Because without history, you cannot go anywhere in the world. And by the diaspora among African, we are actually trying to recollect where we are coming from and let it be used for our own good. If you look at the United States as an example, you see, they spend a lot of time, resources, talking about Europe. That is to say that they are talking about their origin. They are conscious of the fact that they are coming from Europe. They don't play that down at all. You see this in the way they behave, in the law that they make, in the kind of businesses that they do, in the sense of who do they deal with. They are very conscious of this. In fact, for many of us that are in the diaspora, they want us to do the same in the sense of connecting to Europe instead of connecting to where we are coming from. In a number of occasions, I've had to ask some historians that I've interviewed here, because I do interview a lot of historians. I must say that I'm going towards 1,000 episode, 1,000 video on Obehi podcast, and we are barely starting. So I was saying, why should in American university you are spending a lot of time talking about ancient Greek? And nobody is talking about African history. And perhaps maybe the person I'm interviewing is an African historian. So the question, actually, what I'm usually probing in that line is, why can't we make connection? Maybe an African university, a US university, maybe in New York or California, make a connection to a university in Nigeria, in Accra, in Congo, so that you need to know this story, not through the faces of other people. You know it by collaborating with other people that look like you, because that is what the Europeans are doing. Maybe they don't call it the diaspora in the sense of the connection, because the narrative, again, are not the same. We are not European. We are Africans. So our way of interpreting reality might be slightly different. But we are not going to lose track of the essential objective that we have within the diaspora, which is we are looking for a way to make sure that our experience or our experiences are leveraged for our own good. And this is what the The Chinese also did in America. You call the Chinese. I think I don't know if that they call it the Chinese diaspora, but I know that it's in the East. It's something that is very common. It's very popular, which is the idea of walking back to the home to home. India have really been a very good example in this. In that they might be very successful in wherever they are, but they make sure that they connect to where they are coming from. And this has helped them a lot in the development of their technology. IT in India today is very, very big. This is thanks largely to the Indian diaspora. Again, we are using our experiences to build something that can help us where we are. So I don't want to really say whether it is a good thing, but anyway, I want to say it's a good thing. I'm not going to doubt that at all. It's a good thing. The idea of the diaspora is a good thing because we are looking for something that connects all of us. If you go into the circle where maybe the people that are talking are the Jews, you see that the Jews diaspora is essentially like saying all the Jews in the world are pulling their effort together for the interest of the Jewish people in the world and the Jewish homeland, which is Israel. And I think many Africans are also seeing it in this light. In fact, billions of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars are remitted to Africa every year from the diaspora. We know that we are a significant force in the world. Maybe we can use another word for that. I don't know, but at least for the fact that we are saying African in the diaspora, we are essentially saying Africa that are away from the continent. But do we have something that connects us together? Is there something that when I find myself in New York, I'm a Nigerian, I meet another Nigerian, we can have something of common? Or maybe I find a Congolese in New York, I can have something of common among us, even though we are not necessarily from the same Nigeria or from the same Congo. I think we are moving towards there. I think it can be useful for us. All right. Anyway, that is just me talking. I repeat, I do not know all. I'm just speaking from what I feel. All right, Dr. Matia, what is your take on that?
I want to speak from where I'm standing and really how I feel. And I want to say how much I appreciate Anjan all the time for bringing these thought-provoking and deep reflections into conversations. However, if I am to talk about the diaspora, I would want us to become a Cuban. Cuban understands what it means to be affected by the American diaspora that keeps them shackled for thousands of years and cannot free them regardless of the appeals. So if we talk about Cuba, if we talk about Haitian feels the blunt of the diaspora, of what diaspora means and how united persons are in their efforts to shackle, to to keep back persons, which are not the intent. But if we are to talk about the American diaspora, we want to look at the IMF that singles out particular groups and nations to assist. If we want to talk about CARICOM, we look at the reflections and the theme underlying subtle and obvious of what the American diaspora means. If we talk about the United Nations, we talk about it and we see it there. If we talk about human rights. So if we are to go down, Anjan, and really have a deep discussion on American and the diasporas that exist, we would be shocked and surprised to see that they are the masterminds of diasporas, and they do not promote it. They do not have to put it on any flag. They do not have to advertise it. They don't have to claim it. They don't have to publish it because it is a program that they put into your mind when you're an American. Anywhere you go in the world and you are affected or you're going to be hurt or damaged in any way, once you're a citizen of America, they do everything in their power to safeguard you, even if you're wrong. And they go through negotiations and they go through numerous things. If you are from a different nation and you acquire citizenship in America, the negotiation is different. You just have to ask someone who is involved in that level of negotiations. And unfortunately, I am understanding both sides. And so to say that there is not that type of declaration is naive to some extent. I want to look, however, at how persons and experiences respond. Persons respond and interpret their experiences and live it out. There is a saying that says, to understand what someone else is going through, you cannot tell them to tie their lace or buckle their shoes if you have not walked a mile in it. And the years of oppression and of abuse, emotional, mental, sorry, abuse, and the tragedies of the African experience, and can only be compared to, in my limited experience because of my age and what the stories I've been told, to the Jewish Holocaust. There are the two nations in the world that have suffered the most from prejudice and misinterpretation of culture and have been deliberately suppressed because of the uniqueness that they bring, the talents, capabilities, and possibilities that exist because of how they view themselves and what they feel is their resilience. That story and person story are the thing about story. The limitations on story is the interpretation when it gets into your spirit, and the possibilities of storytelling to connect is the power that it has to harness hope and resilience and to allow persons to take back their power. That is how it connects, regardless of their diaspora, regardless of experience, regardless of divide, regardless of difference. Persons who have suffered great loss bond together. Persons who have suffered betrayal bond together. Persons who have gotten through cancer, crisis, certain types of health issues where doctors say they would never survive it, they bond together because they have a common theme running through their story: survival, overcoming, promise, possibilities. And that is what story really does. In the diaspora, the stories, any diaspora, stories keep traditions alive. Stories remind us of our past and our future and keep us humbly concentrating and intentionally and purposefully focusing on moving upward and out and to a higher cause, because the foundation has been laid. It is as if these stories are the arms that hug you when you have lost hope. Stories are the shield that keep you armored, safe, and secure when you feel like you have nothing and no one. Stories keep you anchored on your purpose when you realize that what you are going through, someone else went through of greater, and gives you greater openings in your mind and also in your spirit of what can happen if you really want. Stories keep you connected to yourself and reconnect you to the selves from which you emerge to become who you are, and connect you to those souls that will become what you are living, because that is the legacy of stories. It keeps the connection of humanity together. It is a thread and a cord that cannot be broken across generations and across divides. Stories have that power, and there is nothing that can be accomplished without a story. There is nothing in life that does not come with a story. So, story is the power tool for existence and survival. It is the power tool for resilience. It is the power tool for life.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Matia. And of course, thank you, Arjun, for bringing that aspect of the conversation. It is very important. And like Dr. Matia is saying, without story, we don't know where we are coming from. We are lost. Now, I want to give us a small story. Now, imagine an ego that is harsh, because the ego is like the chicken, like the other birds, no? Only that is different. The only difference comes from the attitude, or come from the understanding of what has been before. Now, imagine an egg of ego mixed with the egg of chicken, and they both are harsh, and they are allowed to mingle and grow together. And maybe they have fed the story of chicken. If they eventually grow up, do you think the ego will fly? Well, most likely, the ego will never fly. The ego, now amongst the chicken, we actually look at other egos in the air flying. The ego will believe that, no, I cannot fly. I'm like the one that I've grown up with. Because you see, storytelling actually configure our head. It shapes our reality. It tells us what is possible for us and what is not possible for us. That is why the hardest thing for us in our journey, in our self-improvement journey, is to believe that it is possible for us. That is the hardest part of it. If we can overcome that equation, then almost anything is possible. Storytelling, or the power of story, is not good or bad. It just opens you up to anything that you want, and it can be possible for you if you believe it. You see, the city where we are living, I'm living in Verona, which is the northern part of Italy. You might be living in UK or in France, in Germany, or in New York. That city was actually built based on story. That is actually a reflection of the imagination of a person or persons. They believe that it is possible for them. They put their force behind it, and it became a reality. But before it can become a reality, you first of all need to dream of it. And when you dream of it, it's only living in your head. But now you are going to share it with people of similar mindset who will believe in you. Even when the people believe in you, it's still not a reality. It's still just a mere vision, a mere story. But when you solidly believe in that and you work on it, it will one day become a reality. Let me share another story with you. You see, in Germany, in the build-up to Second World War, the people that will later be massacred, the Jews, you see, they were living in Germany. They didn't suddenly come there. They were like every other people there. They have been living there for generations. They were working in the banks. They were husbands. They were wives. They were co-workers. Of course, there were also bad ones among them, just like every other person, like every other group of people. Up until, say, 1930, 1925, or maybe say like in the 1900s, say maybe we're talking of 1902 now. You see, there was no problem. The story, the narrative of the day was that these were simply my co-worker, the husband, the wife, the neighbor that were living together. That person we are going to call to come and fix something in our house because it's not working. That person will come to fix something in the house because it was not working. It wasn't seen as an enemy. You see, it will take one man, okay, not only one man, Adolf Hitler, and the people that believe in him, that were working with him, it will take these kind of people to change that narrative. And because that happened, that person that was your friend, that was coming to work in your house, suddenly become an enemy. And what is the consequence of that? The consequence of that is that you can literally see him be killed. Your heart will not really, you will not feel anything bad because you have been given a different narrative about these people, that They are responsible for the suffering in the land. That is what story can do. It can frame the image of an innocent to become an enemy, but it can also frame the image of an enemy to become a friend, which is why I'm telling you here that storytelling is not good or bad. It's just the power, and power is potential. It depends on what you do with it. So among the African diaspora, what we are saying, therefore, is that we can tap into the story with an intention that we know what we want. We will use it, our experiences, our ancestors who were put to torture. We will go and recuperate those stories. But we will use it for the intention of building us, of reclaiming our agency, of owning our narrative, of retelling that story the way that it gives us our dignity, in the way that it respects those people who were killed. You see, the reason that the world do not know about the more than 50 million people that were killed in Congo is because we haven't decided that it is important. I mean, not the world that is decided, that we, Africa, need to decide that. If we decide that, we will retell that story. The world will understand that again. It's the same story, only that we tell it differently. Put in different elements that make it resonate, that make it elevate the humanity of the people. You see, I was reading recently that only a couple of, I don't know if it was years ago or months ago, that the tooth, one of the teeth of Patrice Lumumba, the first prime minister of Congo, was returned from Benjo. Do you know how Patrice Lumumba was killed? Okay, let me tell you what happened after he was killed. When Lumumba was killed, he was actually put in a gas chamber. They melted his body, according to the story. And of course, they went away also with the skeleton, experimenting on how much we can take in our suffering. But who is going to tell that story? It's not just a general universal story. It is us to retell that story and clothe those ancestors with dignity. It's the same story. You see, that story is living in museum in different part of the world today. But it's living, or those stories are living in the museum according to the narrative of Euro-Western, saying this is what these people are. If you want to change that narrative, you need to tell that story from the perspective of the African people, of the children of those people who want to clothe their parents with dignity. It's up to us to do. So storytelling is powerful. So we can use these experiences that we have passed through to connect among ourselves. We will redefine the objective that we have. Because we know where we are coming from, we also know where we are going. Storytelling can help us to do that because we know who we are. Dr. Matia, what is your final take here? Because we say we are going to spend 1 hour here. Of course, we could continue, but that is what we are going to spend here. Please let us know your final message here.
Embrace the stories that we want to tell. We want to enhance the delivery of these stories so they do what we want them to do. We also want to look at how it will be received and how it is translated and adopted as we move it across. So we want to be very sensitive of how these stories, although they belong to us, they own them, will affect them, everyone, so that we place the stories in the hands of those who it will serve, whose purpose it will most serve. And so we have an opportunity to tell all our stories, but we make sure that it gets into the right hands. Because if we give shoes to persons who have no feet, we have really not given anybody anything. And so we must safeguard and protect the peace of persons and their dignity as we give them stories to help them, to build them, to restore them, to rejuvenate them, to recharge them, and to empower and transform them. Stories are not common commodities. They are powerful tools of change. And as we are given these opportunities, we must use them very wisely. We must use them purposefully. We must use them intentionally. We must use them well. And we must use them carefully so that they carry out the purpose for which these life stories are given to us. It fulfills our divine mission and it serves people and not us. That is the only way our stories can connect across these borders and divides, across these extensions, across experiences. It is the themes, it is the motives, it is the enablings that these stories carries that creates that connection. It's not about us, it is something bigger than us. When our stories become bigger than us, we are beginning to make the impact that we are created to make. Thank you for allowing me to share in this session again. It's always great to share with persons like Anjan, Obehi. I appreciate you, Violet, Loretta, Chuck. I don't know, I don't want to call the wrong name, Orsi, and so he doll. Thank you so much for staying with us and for listening. It was a pleasure sharing. And T say, thanks for joining and for always supporting us as we continue to share and build each other up.
Thank you so much for that. That is what we really need. We need to continue to build each other's up. We need to help ourselves to become the child man and the child lady in the mission. But I also like very well what you said there, Dr. Marcia, that we need to make story do what we want it to do. We now say that the story themselves are not just predefined. We are the one that are using them as tool for the mission. But then you also said something to the effect of fulfilling our divine mission. It cannot be said any better than that. That we need to realize that at this time, at this moment, we are on a mission to accomplish something that is bigger than just us. That this is not just about us, but we have a responsibility to do this, to tell this story, and to use it to elevate the dignity of the people, and to use it to connect among ourselves to continue to uplift our image, who we are in the world. That is so powerful. And of course, we use storytelling also in other area. I essentially use storytelling to empower people and businesses to connect and retain their ideal clients. And this is, again, for the fact that storytelling is a neutral tool. If you know how to tell story, that is what actually I'm referring to. It means you have power that can work any way that you want it to work. Like Dr. Marcia said, you need to use the story to do what you want it to do. How powerful that can be for you if you know where you are going. Because everything suddenly become important tool for you to use. Of course, in this case now, we are looking for a way to use it to work for us, to connect among ourselves, and to reshape the narrative so that people need to see the narrative about us through our lenses, not through their own lenses, which is their prejudiced lenses of what they think we are, without asking us, who are you? Let's leverage the power of storytelling because it's an ancient power. It has been powerful, it is powerful, and it will remain powerful.